I move that this petition be received. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favour, please show. Any against? That is carried. Will the petitioners please come forward? Welcome to the meeting. We allow up to 5 minutes for petitioners to speak. Please start when you are ready and tell us what you are petitioning about. And when you are finished, the Council will debate the issue and then decide how to deal with the petition.
I begin in the name of God, most gracious and most merciful, who is a God of Moses, God of Jesus, and God of Prophet Muhammad. Peace be upon them all, and God of all creation. My name is Majid Khan. I'm representing Lumb Lane's neighbourhood businesses and residents who have submitted the petition of over 2,000 people requesting the Bradford City Council to address the businesses and residential communities' parking needs and improve and enhance the visual image of the area, including better lighting, roads, pavements, and environmental improvement. I would like to thank the Lord Mayor of Bradford for giving me the opportunity to present the concerns of more than 2,000 people's democratic right to be heard by the full Council, for which we are seeking to support to address our concerns regarding parking issues. The problem we face: existing businesses' parking provision is inadequate in the area. This needs to be preserved, and additional parking needs to be created to reduce existing congestion and improve safety of all stakeholders using Lumb Lane for business and residential usage. The trade on Lumb Lane has declined and are suffering financial hardship considerably due to the Drummond Mill fire. Unless parking needs are addressed, many businesses will be killed off, and their very existence and survival will be at stake, and certainly many jobs are at risk and could be lost. Many businesses have been operating on Lumb Lane for over 50 years, such as Haji Cloth House, the Sweet Centre Restaurant, Mirza Travel, Riaz Travel, places of worship such as Tabligh Islam, and the synagogue. Many of us are already facing parking issues with local schools, Bradford City Football Club, and community groups operating in the area. There are no parking spaces left for business owners and customers to use. This is restricting business trading on Lumb Lane and the regeneration of the area. What the community requires from the Bradford City Council: provide new additional free parking spaces for the local businesses which are most likely to be affected. The road needs to be widened for safety. Parking needs an existing two-way road system needs to be preserved and enhanced to ensure it's more effective and it enhances the image and survival of Lumb Lane business community. A full neighbourhood consultation needs to take place with the Lumb Lane businesses and residential community before any new proposal is submitted for the development on the cleared Drummond Mill site, so that we can work together to support regeneration and to enhance and visually improve Lumb Lane as a corridor. Any planning application to be considered must ensure additional parking requirements are met, and Section 106 agreement condition is applied to the applicant to support the local community's requirements. People in our neighbourhood and residents in the area have spent a lot of their own hard-earned money in terms of regenerating their businesses. As a collective, big, mixed community, the questions we ask the Bradford City Council are: have we not have a positive input in respect of the development, progression and the regeneration of Lumb Lane, which, according to the boards of regeneration schemes on Lumb Lane, are predicted to become a part of the wider city centre within the next decade? Have not the businesses on Lumb Lane created more jobs and contributed to the local economy and tourism? Have not many local volunteers and community groups, including mosques, synagogues and local churches, have worked with the vulnerable youth, shifting them away from crime and drugs? Have not the schools progressed through scoring high marks in regards with the national curriculum? Lumb Lane was one of the busiest streets leading in and out of the city centre. Lumb Lane was the place where the Asian businesses and residential community first settled from Pakistan and India in the 50s and works in textile mills such as Drummond Mills. Drummond Mill fire was one of the biggest in the history of Bradford. Bradford's textile heritage, the iconic building alongside its history, has been lost in the fire. Only memories will now remain. The devastating mill fire has caused loss of business in the area, footfall is low. There is urgent need for attention in the area so that the businesses can work to their full potential. We are requesting you, Lord Mayor, and elected members of Council to help us. This issue is having a detrimental effect on our lives and our communities. Please help the people of this area. Please help us to restore decent conditions for all of us to live in peace, harmony and enjoy the area. Just before I conclude, I would once again like to thank Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe, who spotted Lumb Lane's community in our hour of need, and all stakeholders who have spotted the petition, including businesses, residents, customers, local mosques, the local synagogues and churches, and many voluntary groups in the area. Thank you.
I know some of them have left, but can I commend all the petitioners today on keeping strictly to the time limit, which is appreciated. There will now be a debate. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd just like to thank the petitioners as well. I know it's a lot of effort to get that many signatures, and it's obviously an issue close to your hearts. And I completely understand the frustrations that businesses will have wanting to expand and grow and obviously serve customers and residents as well who have to deal with that overspill of a shortage of parking. The issue with the Drummond Mill site really is it's a private site, so the council's own powers are quite limited in terms of forcing, for instance, free parking out of any development. But any application that goes in will be assessed with due process, and it'll have regard to all those issues you say about sort of how it affects the scene in the local area. And if the highways officers will obviously assess it for any impact I believe it would have. So if it had insufficient parking for its own use, for instance, then they'd obviously raise objections to that. I think the best approach really is the Bradford West Area Committee, where highways officers can kind of look at the issue in the round a bit more for you, and they'll be able to look at the wider area and what sort of works they can do. Obviously budgets are very limited at the moment, but I think that's probably the best route. And then they can also look at the wider issues you raised about public realm improvements and the sort of wider street scene and road widening. That all come under the auspices of the Bradford West Area Committee, so that's where I'd recommend it goes. So I don't know if any members want to propose that, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I take on board what Councillor Ross Shaw has said? I think we need to be a little bit more positive about the opportunity than was implied there. And I also think that we need to be careful about not placing upon area committees responsibility for looking at programmes and schemes that they probably don't have the funding to deliver. And I think we know this when we look at substantial schemes of highways works, is that the budgets that are devolved for highways to area committees are really not sufficient to do substantial schemes. If all they wanted was some tidying up of edges and some yellow lines and stuff like that, fair dues. That's what area committees do really well. I actually think that if it goes there, it goes there. I do think that what they flagged up here isn't just a question of the immediate challenge that faces those businesses, which is the impact of the fire and the subsequent demolition, and the thing has affected some of those businesses quite badly. But it's also about the opportunity that large, admittedly privately owned site offers in terms of looking at how we look at regenerating quite an important part of the city. And bear in mind there are other stakeholders, God, I've used that word, I hate it, in the area that are worth bearing in mind. There's the housing trusts, there's obviously the businesses themselves, and other partners. And I think we probably need to try and draw them together in terms of doing the work here. I think simply saying, oh, well, we can do a little bit of the area committee and that'll satisfy them, I don't think goes far enough. So what I hope is, if it does go to the area committee has the foresight to say, we need to send this somewhere else in order that some work around how we look at a regeneration scheme for the area can be put together. Because if we can't do things like that, even if it involves trying to look at private finance and look at partnerships and things like that, and is difficult to deliver, we don't do that, then actually what's the point in people coming and presenting opportunities to us? So I would urge actually that we prefer it to go to the executive. I think they could then rather than to the Bradford West Area Committee, I think they would be able to do a little bit more with it. But if it does go to the Area Committee, I hope the Area Committee looks at it as more than just a little highway scheme, and actually looks at it as more than that, because I think it's a really important part of the city, and it needs good attention. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't think any one action is mutually exclusive, to be quite honest. So I think Bradford West Area Committee absolutely need to have sight of this, because it's a key strategic site in Bradford West, and I'm sure that committee would want to have a look at it from a highways point of view. I think you highlight a number of issues from a regeneration perspective that perhaps regeneration scrutiny could have a look at. I have been for a number of years, I'm very fond of Manningham actually, because I've been on the Manningham Master Plan board for about 3 years and chaired it. Councillor Jabbar has just taken over my role on there. But we will all remember that time when that mill burnt down and how significant that was, not just actually for Manningham, but for the whole city. And that burned not just for days, weeks, but actually months. Because I remember having a meeting there with businesses long after the event, actually, when businesses were saying, you know what, it's still smoking. Because as the demolition came down, of course, underneath there was still fire in the cellars of the old mill that then needed extinguishing again. So those businesses have lived with quite a difficult time, actually, whilst that mill site is cleared. And I know how difficult that's been. I'm pleased now that all the businesses are open again and Sweet Centre's trading again, which has been sort of symbolic, really, at getting the area back on its feet. So I'm really pleased about that. Any development on that site is going to be good for business, I feel. A derelict site is no good for anybody. So we all want actual development to take place on there that will sustain businesses and support them additional trade. And perhaps it's the time now for regeneration scrutiny to look at it, not just from the highways point of view, because that's obviously Councillor Ross Shaw's point, but also from the regeneration point of view and the opportunities that might come along with that. So personally, I would refer it for a bit of policy development to regeneration scrutiny, as well as Bradford West, if that's allowable within the rules of the council.
Are there any more speakers? Do we take Councillor Hinchcliffe's remarks as a proposal? Right. Is that seconded? Right. Those in favour, please show. Any against? That is carried. I would like to thank the petitioners for coming today. You will be contacted about the next stage. Item 7, public question time. There aren't any. Item 8, membership of committees. I believe the changes to membership committees have been circulated. Oh, there's none additional. No. Is there a mover to the changes?
Moved, Lord Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Those in favour, please show. Those against? That is carried. Item 9, report of the Leader of Council. The report of the Leader of Council has been circulated. Members of Council will now have the opportunity to question the Leader on her report for a period of up to 15 minutes. Can I remind members that in accordance with Rule of Procedure 11A.2, only questions can be put to the Leader on matters arising out of the Leader's written report. Councillor Cook, do you wish to ask a question?
I was going to say spoil sport, but there we go. Thank you for this, and thanks in particular for the piece on adult social care and the clarification of the funding levels. Two, please, can you call us a Conservative Party, please, rather than the Tory Party? Not that I mind particularly, but, you know, just for form's sake. And I recognise, can you just outline what we do know so far and what the kind of process we're going to go through to actually look at the use of the money? In other words, is it going to be a report to executive? Is it going to be done by fiat and by officer to delegate? How are we going to deal with this? Because it's a substantial amount of money, and obviously we all want to make sure that that money goes to get the best outcomes for the elderly and vulnerable